recording and we'll get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America. Tonight is our Monday night Moms Connect call. It's April 20th, and we are going to be talking about 5G/5G and some strategies tonight. Our mission at Moms Across America is to educate and empower mothers and others with actions and solutions to create healthy communities. And that means we take a look at or take on or share information about anything that threatens the health of our children, especially because they're the most vulnerable, and our family members. And we have a lot to be thinking about today. We are incredibly concerned about the health of our communities. We're incredibly concerned about the economic impact that our country is feeling right now. It is crazy town going on in the stock market. It is something like, I'm just gonna say right off the bat here, I think if our businesses should be shut down, so should the stock market. I think they are getting out of hand. It's up and down and up and down, and everybody is reacting, and it's really crazy town. Yes, Max?
Did you hear that the price of oil went from $20 a barrel to minus $37 a barrel?
Yep, I just heard that on the radio now. They're basically giving it away. It's like buy one, get one.
They're paying the people to take it away.
Paying people to take it away.
It's
yes.
Minus 37.
Minus 37.
It was $1.19 today when I went to go get tested. It was $1.19, but I know it won't go below. I won't go that low because there's logistics involved, trucking and all that, but still.
And we don't know what that really means for the economy. People are going to guess. And here's the issue that I have with what's going on right now today, and what I'd like everybody, all of us, to think about, myself included, is that what's happening is people are reacting. They're imagining what's going to happen. They're reacting in fear. And so everything starts to spiral and get out of control. I would really like for people to take a moment and think about, what do you want to create? What do you want the future to be? And think about that instead of allowing your headspace to get all caught up in swirl and what could be happening. Do you guys get the difference? You see that? Like, if we were focusing on what we wanted to create and we were taking actions on that, we wouldn't be having all this time for all this swirl on social media and the arguments and the, oh, maybe I should sell my stock, you know, like
people want to create toilet paper.
If they want to create toilet paper, hey, maybe you can get on creating hemp toilet paper, and over there growing all those hemp seeds, right?
I actually have hemp toilet paper here.
You do? That's amazing. So things like that. If there's something that you want to create, now's the time to be focusing on what you want to create rather than reacting to all the drama that's going on and just imagining, right? That committee in your head can be like this cacophony of chaos and doom and gloom. And that's not what's going to get us where we want to be. We want to be creating that future that we want. So, you know, I'd like to ask somebody, what is something that you want to see happen in the future that excites you, that's positive, that will make a difference for you and for other people? What's something that you guys want? What do you see in the future?
Well, I see a lot of people right now they're selling out of seeds. People are now getting serious about putting their vegetable gardens in. What I would love to see created is that neighborhood in Switzerland where everybody was growing food in their backyards. That's what I would love to see, and bartering and.
Awesome. And you're a good one to say that, because you are doing that. You're actually transforming your backyard into a garden. So that's something where you've seen that, you've envisioned it, and you're actually making it happen. That's awesome. And anybody else? Yes, Carol, thanks for being with us.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm really excited. In my community, I live in La Cresta, and it's a community in Southern Cal, and our neighborhood or our area is just awesome. People are really thinking more about growing more food. A lot of people already grow food here, and they're bartering. We have 38 chickens. So, you know, people are coming over and I'll trade you some avocados for, you know, some eggs. And I have just noticed that there's just a great sense of people kind of getting back to the basics of, you know, this is how we help one another in a neighborhood. It's just, I don't know. I feel great. So
Awesome. So great, Carol. And Carol's always creating. She's from Food Integrity Now, and she's made flyers that she passed around her neighborhood that talk about how Roundup affects pets. And so she's gotten into that conversation and with her neighbors around their dogs and their cats, which was so brilliant because people, they don't want to be told what to eat themselves, right? But if you start
Right.
talking to them about how they can take care of their dog so their dog doesn't get cancer about like half the other dogs in the neighborhood, then they're open and they'll listen to you about organic pet food, won't they?
yeah, they are. I mean, there's still people using Roundup up here, but I'm on it. I'm on a mission.
Yes, that's great. Thank you for being on. I appreciate it.
You're
All right,
welcome.
so let's see if anybody else can tell me how to see the chat instead of all these names on the side. I don't know. It's all looks different for me. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll do
Lisa,
it.
okay,
If you
so
run your cursor
Lisa,
over the bottom, the chat, the menu will pop up
Okay.
and you'll
Yes,
see
I
chat.
see that, but it's different. I've got all this other stuff on the top, but
But
Well,
can you hit the
Lisa-
chat icon down there? Yes.
oh, are you the one, Lisa Kolak?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, okay, then you can talk about what you put in the chat. Then I was going to read what you put in the chat.
Oh, I was just saying I've been wanting for about 3 years to start an artisan soap company with better
Oh.
ingredients and stuff because my kids have skin conditions that I now know where they came from. That is aggravated by the soap. So just trying to use better ingredients and do that.
I do
working
that,
in
Lisa,
cubicle.
and I give it away to everybody, and it's just basically three ingredients, and it's fabulous. So,
Yeah, yeah. They offered me a spot at the farmer's market too because they lost their soaper. So I'm trying to
Oh,
build
do
up
it.
inventory.
that's great. Awesome. I love to hear what you're creating, and you absolutely can do it. There's a lot of very successful soap companies out there that just do something different. Have yours be something a little bit, different and have a niche, and then it can catch on. All right, great. Well, it's great to hear that people are creating something, and anytime that you are stressed out and feeling a lot of anxiety from what's happening. By the way, I did a podcast I think it was Thursday or Friday, called Anxiety Anyone? It's all about anxiety. And I'm not a doctor, but just some of my own experiences, if you do have anxiety, you can listen to that and then start thinking about what you're creating, okay? And take action based on that future that you see. And it doesn't matter if you don't know how to do it, doesn't matter if you look bad, doesn't matter if you're not going to get it right. You just pick yourself back up and keep going, and you'll have a lot of fun along the way. All right, so I'm going to screen share and talk about a few things tonight, things that are going on with 5G. First, I think I'll do the letter, just in case anybody comes on. Hang on a second, that wants to talk about the OTARD thing, but yes. Okay, so first, let me screen share this letter. I'm going to talk a little bit about the letter that my lawyer created and that you can use. You can capture sections of it, but I think because it's a PDF, you're going to have to email me and I'll ask him for like the Word version or something like that, right? So that you don't have to retype everything. But it's a letter from lawyer Bill Curley. And I just want to point out a few things about this. I talked about it in my podcast today too, which is, in case you missed this, I wanted to go over it a little bit. You want to make sure in your letter to mention the permit numbers for the applications that have, for the applications in your city for small cell wireless telecommunication facilities. They're not going to be 5G. Okay, you have to ask for what are the applications for the any pending or your current, well, if it's current, they would be already approved, but any current small cell wireless telecommunication facilities, and they have to give them to you. Mine were already in the meeting, the public hearing, which was addressing these. It was in the agenda. So all I had to do was go to the website, or he actually gave me the link, to the website for the agenda. And in the agenda packet, there was like 150-page application, and in that application are these numbers, right? So you want to refer specifically to those applications, and so that the letter is accurate, right? And then you want to put it to either your city council or your city commissioners, whoever the meeting is that is going to be addressing it. In my city, it's the city commissioners first, and then it goes to city council. If the city commissioners deny it, then it'll have to go to city council, and we'll have to start this education process all over again with the city council. So, which is probably going to happen because there are members of my city commissioners that just do not want this at all. So I'm really excited about that. So the above applications, it's talked about which applications, and we say you're writing you to urge you to reject these applications, which are, the meeting's coming up is May 11th. And we're saying in this letter that my city is a unique city because the architectural integrity has been accomplished by design, including the undergrounding of utility lines, including power, telephone, and cables. So this is unique. Not every city is going to be like this. But I invite you to look for something unique about your city that you can include and replace in that first sentence, right? So if your city is a tourist site, right, you want to say our city is unique because tourists come here and they don't want to see a bunch of, right, poles and facilities or whatever. Or we have a lot of, young people in our city, or we have a lot of elderly people, right, in our city, or something. That, I mean, that's a health issue, but if you can use something from the get-go about aesthetics, tourism, or a lot of downtown traffic in a certain area where people walk on the streets, I don't know, you got to think about something aesthetics, right? And then, so this goes on to say the light poles in the city were designed to resemble mission bells with a curled flourish top and a historic element to the design, and the integrity of this design element would be destroyed by placing any small cell antenna on top of any light poles. And they've already decided that they are not putting small cell facilities on our light posts. And the character of the history, the character of the city would further be diminished, right, by other poles with these wires and small cells on them. And so therefore they should be rejected just based on as for aesthetic reason alone, which is something that they can do. That they can weigh the aesthetics, they can determine, deny, or assess the application based on aesthetics. And okay, so, and if Mark, Graham, if you want to chime in about anything, I know you gave me some comments. There haven't been applied in here, and I know you disagree about some things in here. So as soon as I finish with the letter, maybe you can get in here. I would have to stop sharing so I can have you share everything. But this is according to my lawyer, and different lawyers actually do say some different things. There are different cases that lawyers refer to. And so this is what my lawyer has come up with. He's saying the city should reject the above applications and update the local ordinance to require any new telecommunications utilities to be undergrounded based on aesthetics of long-term historical city planning and preservation of residential character and city property values. Now, this is what I want. I want them to say no to all future small cell facilities above ground in the city. And we're not going to get this unless we ask for it, right? If I come in saying, I want there to be a 500-foot setback or a 1,000-foot setback, that means we're letting it into the city, right? It's coming in. I'm already playing that game. I'm down on the football field and I'm running for the 1,000-yard line and they're running for the 100-yard line and we're pushing back on each other, right? And we're on that playing field. Problem is, it's their playing field. Now, I don't want that. I don't want to get on the playing field. I want to say, no, not at all. It's just going to, everything that comes into our city needs to be underground. And you know why that's great? We don't go into it in the letter, but that's great because fiber optics cables work better, faster, more secure, they're more private, and they're less prone to any fires or inclement weather, right? So what I'm asking for is not unreasonable. This is something that there's already the infrastructure in the city already for fiber optics. So further, if the city and its residents wish to have 4/5G small cell facilities by the hundreds or thousands throughout the city must do everything in its power to protect not only the health of the residents, but the economic exposure of the city. Thus, all permits to install such equipment should require the permittee to carry a policy of pollution insurance, naming the city as an additional insured, which insurance will carry $1 million per occurrence, coverage for EMF exposure caused illnesses. This would protect the city, its commissioners, council members from personal injury lawsuits and the city coffers from being depleted due to lawsuits for harm from constant radiation exposure to our residents. Potentially, the amount of dangers could be, tens of millions for lawsuits from the residents could be forced upon for harm due to the constant exposure to radio frequency radiation forced upon them by the city's decision to allow the installation of small cell facilities is much greater, it's a much greater threat. Could you mute yourself if you just joined us, please? Thanks a lot. Is a much greater threat to the city than the lawsuits from the telecoms for permit approval. So that is a very important point, which I'm going to get to a little bit more here about what they can sue for. And it's important to use the wording in this letter about the pollution exclusion and all that, because there is a clause, and some people use a clause like, oh, you have indemnification or something like that. I don't understand all the legal aspects, but that indemnification does not get the city off the hook. It just gets maybe the LLC that's running, installing the stuff, the poles off the hook. So general liability policies of insurance carry pollution exclusion, which defines EMF exposure as a form of pollution and excludes it from coverage. Thus, the telecom company must produce proof of pollution coverage, which includes EMF-induced EMF-induced illnesses in order to adequately protect the city. So, and here's where they talk about indemnity as a form of self-insurance offered by the telecom companies, which may be viable depending on the cash reserves of the permittee and therefore should be additional to the requirement of insurance. I don't understand all the legal ramifications around that, but this is why it's important to have a lawyer. They word it correctly. They know what's going on with the law. And so it's really important. The city of Mission Viejo needs to understand its power to control its own destiny. The cities of Ross, Mill Valley, Fairfax, and Marin County have enacted ordinances that have limited or prohibited small cell installation in residential neighborhoods. Also, Los Altos denied 13 applications and have not been sued. So yes, Lisa, you have a question.
It's not insurable though at all, right? So it's not something that the city can provide.
So
right?
Yes, it's not insurable. However, asking them to have insurance is crucial because
puts them in a corner.
Then they will have to go through that process and realize it. And then they will realize, wait a second, if we can't get insurance, that means we're liable.
Okay, great, cool.
So they have to knowingly take on the liability by going through this process, right?
Okay.
And seeing that they can't get insurance.
Awesome.
So yeah, that leaves our cities to be open to lawsuits, and city council members, and lawsuits have happened, right? To directly to personally to the city council members for not, holding them liable. Yeah, I mean for not, protecting the citizens. So what we want to point out too is everybody heard that, oh, my city has to approve these, otherwise the telecom companies will sue them, right? They keep telling you, oh, my hands are tied, our hands are tied, we have to approve these. Well, the fact is that the threats of the telecom companies that any attempt to restrict deployment will result in lawsuits are hollow and specious. Okay, that's another word that's not in my vocabulary, but basically meaningless. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 establishes federal preemption over small cell deployment, carries no monetary remedy for violations of the act. In other words, if the city prohibits deployment for the wrong reason, the only remedy in court is an injunction requiring the city to issue a permit. The telecom companies cannot sue for monetary damages, penalties, or even attorney fees if they prevail. So this is awesome, folks. And he gives you the clauses here. So the next 2-3 sections are all about the different cases. So this is so great. So if your city says, you know what, we really don't want these here, we're going to deny it. If they're going to sue us, well, we've already paying the city attorney, right? They're already paying that attorney. They're going to have to, go to some court and say, we don't want to have this because of aesthetics. And if the judge finds, okay, well, you have to have it anyway. So then all that happens is that pole gets to be put up. Now, that's not what we want. But the fact is that it's not mentioned here in this letter, but the 1996 Telecommunications Act also excluded the word operations from the preemptions. So that means that our cities can control operations, and that means they can turn the things off. So if the poles go up, we can just say, hey, mayor, look what's happening. This person is getting headache. This person has cancer. This person has to go in for a fast growing brain tumor, right? You better turn these things off before you get multiple, class action, hundreds of people suing. And then they can do it. They can turn the poles off. They've done this in other cities. They have turned off the pole in Huntington Beach that was 65 feet outside of a woman's bedroom, and they can do it in other places too. So they just need to hear from you. So this is how we're going to, win around this. So again, the letter says that in addition, if the city does accept any applications, these applications propose to erect unsightly and architecturally disrupted cell towers and poles. The applicant should not only have a certificate of insurance with coverage for EMF-induced illness, but also a 5-year master plan for what will be done with any new technology when the Starlink satellite 5G system, which has been approved by the FCC to the tune of 1 million antennas on the ground, becomes deployed. So you want your city to think about, hang on a second, if I go ahead and approve these, 15 or 20 or 200 30-foot poles to be built all over my city, and these small cell facility put up, what happens when these Starlink satellites go up, which is happening right now? There's already been at least 500 put up, and there are 1 million antennas on the ground go in. Will these poles with the small cell facilities be defunct? Will they be obsolete? We have completely junked up our cities with these poles that lower property value and expose people to constant radiation and constant data collection. Will these be null and void, right? That's exactly the very first question that one of my city commissioners asked when a proposal came to the table. He said, well, I don't know if I want these poles going up all over the city. What happens when they have the satellite thing? Are all these poles going to be, just a bunch of garbage? So you want to make sure that they have a 5-year plan, and that's going to take the applicant some time as well for where they want to put these poles and why they want to put them in each location, and what happens when these satellites are deployed, right? So, and again, you want to end with the vision that you want, right? Which is the city should deny the applications and maintain your city as, in our case, one of the most beautiful and safest cities in America. So you want to use what your city has done. What have they worked towards? Do they have a tourism spot? Do they really appreciate the arts? In Costa Mesa, they have declared a 100-foot setback for any type of public art because they value art there. But lo and behold, a daycare center in a home only gets a 35-foot setback. So I was mad at that city council meeting. I stood up and did a disruption of the peace, and the policeman came over and all that kind of stuff. I don't always encourage this, but they wouldn't allow us to talk anymore. And I said, excuse me, wait a second. Do you mean that a toddler gets gets only a 35-foot setback, but a piece of art gets a 100-foot setback? And they were like, the other people in the city council were like, well, where does it say that? I'm like, right there. Like, if you look down right on the ordinance, that's what it says. And so they told me if I kept talking, I'd be escorted out. But I had to point that out. You have to point out the ridiculousness of what's going on here, right? And it's very important to point out the discrepancies between human life and things like historical buildings and all of that. Yes, and the surveillance issue is there's 2 main reasons why this is a terrible idea. Okay, these 5G grids. Number 1 is the constant radiation of our families. The 5G from T-Mobile is completely different in the sense that these towers can be 2 miles away and your phone can still have that little 5G thing. Most of your phones probably already say that. It's just an upgraded 4G. I'm not saying it's great, but it can be 2 miles away and still work. And they even say that in the commercials, right? They're like, oh, we have this huge reach and all of that stuff. But these 5G grids for the data downloading that they want to do has to be about 500 feet apart, about 30 feet from your home or something like that. And they need to be very close together because the 5G millimeter wave is different. And it needs to basically be accompanied with 4G. It needs to come together. So that's the problem. It's very close to your home. They're much closer together. It's a dense deployment. And so that really is a problem. And what I want to be clear about is when they talk about data, that this is for, better data downloading, it really is not that big of a difference for us. It's like 8 seconds to 2 seconds or 4 seconds maybe for our data downloading. The point is it's their data downloading our data. That's why they really want to do this. They want to download how many times are we clicking on a certain website? How many times are we opening up the refrigerator? How many times are we making coffee or turning up the heat or turning down the heat or whatever that is in our smart home. They want to download our data, and they're downloading data from thousands of homes, right? In every single thing. So they need a lot of downloading power. They need the power, not us. That's why they're doing this. So they're subjecting us to this microwave radiation because they want to gather our data. And it's all about making money. So it's not just telecom, it's the big corporations that want our data so that they can sell it for marketing purposes to sell us more junk. That's what this is about. And, you know, some people may say stuff like, you know, they want to control us all and kill us all and all that kind of stuff. If there's evidence for that, that's fine. That's not empowering for me to go there. I'm not going to go there. I just think they're really greedy and they want our data and they want to make money off of us. And I don't want that because I don't want the constant radiation and I don't want the surveillance that encroaches upon the privacy of my home.
Hey,
So,
then Eileen
yeah.
said, what if the 5G is hidden in the light poles? I don't think they can do that.
No, you can see the unit. You can see, yeah, but now some poles it's just a continuation. It just goes all the way up and there's like a little ridge. And so it's a pole where it looks like a pole. So that can look like it's hidden in there. Yes, Max?
Also, they're now putting poles up that look like trees.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they've been doing that for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eileen's saying it's hidden. Well, I'd like to see a picture of that, Eileen, because of ones that I have seen, they're visible. And yeah, send me a picture or whatever. But you know, here's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's hidden or not. You have the right to know where they are. So you write to your city council or your city hall and ask them, I would like the addresses of any current or pending small cell wireless telecommunication facilities. If you want to add in surveillance, that's fine, but they may say, we don't have that. But you can ask where those locations are. And there's actually a website that shows you, I don't remember the website, I've posted on Moms Across America before, and you may have that. You can type in your address and it will tell you how many antennas are around you. Now, keep in mind, most of those antennas are, thank you, Wendy, most of those antennas are like radio antennas, you know, older antennas or macro towers. Those antennas are not going to be, for the most part, small cell facilities for 5G. They're going to be older type antennas. But that still is something that you want to think about, especially if you're buying a house. You know, do you really want to buy a house right next to a macro tower or, you know, okay, there you go, antenna search. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, antennasearch.com. So you want to think about that and think about how much you want to expose yourself to, especially if you're the type of the person that has EMS, electromagnetic sensitivity symptoms like tinnitus, headaches, fatigue, confusion, brain fog. That could all be EMS, you know, sensitivities to your devices.
Then,
Yes.
I don't know how many people were on the call the other week when I was talking about contacting the power company, telling them to get rid of my smart meter, and they said they would not do that. And
Yes.
then they gave me all the information, which I sent to you, the megahertz and everything, and that they have over 200 of these in use right now. And so I literally did write to CHD and ask Daphna where she thinks I could go, because she's an attorney, about suing the whole power company, not for money, for getting everybody's meters replaced. So I don't know where we're going to go with that, but they can cause people, if you've got a smart meter outside your bedroom, it can be causing you all kinds of problems.
Yes, absolutely. It can be causing problems, and even Graves' disease, you know, brain issues, migraines, all kinds of problems. You really want to consider that, what type of devices there are outside of your home. There are cages that you can put your smart meter in. But my understanding is that it might be different state laws that they have to allow you to have analog. And by the way, you don't want to get digital smart meter because that still emits EMFs. Yes, they charge $10 more a month. You do have to pay $75 for them to remove it, which is completely ridiculous, but that's what you have to pay. But my understanding is that they have to give you an analog, you know, a choice, but maybe in your state they don't. I don't know. So yeah, they do have to. Oh man, Lisa, they forced you to get digital and they're charging you $30 a month. Man. Yeah.
She already had an analog and they wouldn't let her keep it.
Yeah. This is really, you know, things like this really show me how important it is to have people like us that are getting more involved and, you know, aware in your county supervisor boards, your city, you know, council, your planning commissioners, you know, going to these meetings, all of that stuff. This is why it's so important, because we have to be speaking up and we have to be bringing the truth to them and not just have people in there that really don't know what's going on and don't follow the type of information or, you know, learn the type of information we do. So it's really important. And yeah, nobody wants to have to think about moving because of things like this, but you have to get strong with them. And there's a legal outfit. It's by, I think it's Parker and Stanley now, but it was originally called, it's not LegalZoom. It was a, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not thinking right now. It's a pay per month. It's kind of like insurance. And for $17.99 a month, I have a lawyer, a personal lawyer, right? I can contact them and they talk to me for 45 minutes. They'll write up to 3 sheets a day, 3 different pages, or review 3 pages for me. And then after that, if we go to court, it's only 20, it's like 25% off. It's I think it's called prepaid legal. I think that's what it is. I don't think it's Legal Shield. I think it's prepaid legal. And I think Parker Stanbury bought them. So now when I email them, it's Parker Stan, you know, something like that. But just look into what are the possibilities for you. If you want a lawyer, something like that is really affordable and you're not ending up paying, you know, $350 an hour for them to do 1 hour of something. And I have 3 boys, and if they're in a car accident, I've given them the little like key thing that they can put on their car keys eventually when they start driving. They'll be able to say, I'm going to call my lawyer, don't go anywhere, right? Or if you're at an airport, you can say, no, I'm calling my lawyer, right? And you actually have a lawyer. So it can be really handy for things like this. So yes, so Mark wants to say a few things about contacting the city. Yes, please.
Hi, Zen.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, everybody. I agree with so much of what you were saying there, and it really is important to find out what your city's doing, find out what the big telecom companies have asked the city to do, and just learn as much as you can, and just show up and stay on them. I agree. They are trying to gather our data so they can sell us more junk. That's at least one of the end games here. Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to comment on a couple of things. Is it possible for me to share a screen? Share my screen?
I think so. I don't think okay.
Do you see it at the bottom of, your screen where it says share screen?
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I did? Okay. That was because people were screen bombing us before. So put it in the chat what it is that you want to share. If you have it is it on a website?
Yeah. When they talk about how close these cell antennas need to be to our homes and so on, I always come back to this thing. Sorry, I gotta send that to everybody. It's not true that they have to be so close, right out in front of your home to work. The first thing is that the 5G cell antennas they don't work by themselves. They work in combination with the 4G cell antennas, which can, have a range of, I don't know, a couple of miles. But even the 5G cell antennas, according to this interview, this is a guy, Lowell McAdam, who was the chief executive officer of Verizon at the time. And he said in an interview that they were now designing the system for over 2,000 feet from transmitter to receiver. And that, if you scroll down on that page, you can get to it. So I like to show that to my city council, and I've transcribed it verbatim, and also, by filling in the blanks and clarifying what he's saying, so you can have it both ways. But I
yes, so I want to point out right here, Verizon CEO McAdams says 5G has a range of greater than 2,000 feet. The interviewer asked whether it will be necessary to have a 5G antenna 25 feet from my house, which is what the telecom companies have been pressuring cities all over the US to do. The implicit in McAdams' answer was no, right? They can
Right.
even go up to 3,000 feet. Okay, so everybody see that? So this is a good, you can grab that URL and include that, or, you know, cut and paste this and include the source and any letters to your city council members. Okay, keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the other thing is, what I found, even though we more or less succeeded here in Elk Grove, the one thing we did not succeed in doing is getting the council to understand the city's regulatory power over cell antennas. And I think that this is, I know from talking to people in different cities, this is a very common battle in cities all over the place. Because the telecom guys come in and they say, oh, you can't regulate our cell antennas on the basis of health. And they point to a section in the Telecommunications Act that kind of says that, but they're expanding on it, and they're exaggerating. So what you said earlier was exactly right, and it's such an important point. The city has the power to regulate the operation of cell antennas on the basis of environment or health or anything that they want, convenience, you know. So it's hard to figure out sometimes what's the best way to get an idea like that into the minds of a city council member if the city attorney has already told them otherwise. So maybe best to talk to your city attorney. And based on my experience, I think the best way to do it, which is not the way we did it, was just to ask them a series of questions, ask the council members a series of questions that are basically like, what can the city do? And, you know, flush that out a little bit. And then regarding what the aesthetics, there's FCC issued this order. This is another thing I want to screen share if I could show you that. But
Okay.
18-133, well, I have it actually, the document. So.
By the way, while you're finding that, I want to point out that they allow you 3 minutes to talk when you get up at your city council meeting, okay? But you can also make a request. You can, when I was there were only 6 of us. I did not, the first time I found out about this was like a week before the applications. And they had already been working with my city on it for a year. So I was a little bit at a disadvantage, but I asked some people to come, and 6 people were there. And I said, you know, there's not very many of us, and I'm just wondering if I could have a little bit more time than 3 minutes. And they said yes. And I said, and may I also ask questions in the end? And they said, well, it's irregular, but yes, you may do so, but the questions need to be asked of us. So I thought they meant my questions had to be just for my city council members, but what they really meant was that I could ask questions to them, but they could be of the applicant. So it may be good for you and your team, or for some people on the calls, to put their heads together about what questions might be good to ask that will put them on the spot, right? That then the applicant has to get up and answer them. Like, for instance, when they're making the presentation, he said things like, oh yeah, the pole only admits, the pole admits levels that are equivalent to that of a cell phone, right? So I would like to know exactly what are those levels, right? And what is the maximum that the FCC allows? And, you know, have there been any studies to show that you know, those exposures are harmful, right? And see, I mean, you know, these people, their answers, they get very squirmy in their answers, and they use semantics, and they try to wiggle out of it, and they keep saying things like, oh, well, the exposure is completely safe according to FCC standards. And that's baloney, because the FCC, first of all, they're not standards, they're guidelines. And second of all, none of the guidelines are based on health or environmental aspects, right? So it's not even based on science. Yes, Max.
Well, I was just thinking, instead of asking them, have there been studies? You should ask them, are you aware that there are studies that show that it's not safe? And then
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. That, yes, that could be a better way to ask the question. We should probably have a call where we just brainstorm questions on, you know, what would be better to ask people. But yeah, something that would have them have to actually admit, you know, right. And the whole thing about insurance too. I'm sure there's some really good questions we could be asking them about insurance, right? So Mark, what are you showing here? What do you want to talk about this?
Okay, when we talk about what are the laws that the city has to comply with, and what are the laws that kind of restrict the city's regulatory power, there are The biggest one is the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that we've been talking about. And another one is this order that the FCC issued in September of 2018. So that's the one up on the screen. So 2 things to know about this order. 3. First of all, it really restricts the powers of cities and local governments to regulate cell antennas within their, their city limits or county limits. And the next thing is a lot of cities, you may know this already, I know you do, Zen, but a lot of cities and municipal leagues from all across the country have filed lawsuits against the FCC to overturn this order or to invalidate it. And so that they may win, I don't know. But I think they have a good chance of winning. I think the FCC is way, they don't have the power to do this, basically. But the third thing, as you talk to the city, you could show them what this order says the city can do in terms of regulating aesthetics or requiring equipment to be placed underground or minimum spacing requirements. And so that's in like paragraphs 84 through about 92 of this order. So when you're telling the city that, hey, I want you to do this, it'll be better for us, and they go, I don't know if we can do that. There's the Telecommunications Act. You can say, look, it's right here, paragraph number 84 or 85 of the FCC order. Read it. That's the law that's in effect today. You can. Sometimes they're not even going to listen to that, but that is the legal basis. And there was one last thing that I wanted to share. Oh yeah, I know this call is not devoted to this, but the FCC guidelines, it's true, they're not standards, it's just guidelines, and there's so many flaws, but they're not even intended to keep you safe. And I have a whole webpage that's devoted to that. I put the link up there in the chat. But the long story short is, keep antennas away from our Elk Grove homes.
That's right, okay.
But the long story short is, FCC said way back in 95 or 6, we are not a health and safety agency. Therefore, we're going to, make our guidelines based on what the experts have said. And who do they consider to be the experts? The IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Well, IEEE has a standard for radio frequency emissions and safety that goes back decades, and it's called C95.1. And if you read carefully C95.1, you find out what its purpose really is. It is not intended to keep you safe. It is not intended to prevent headaches and tinnitus and insomnia and heart palpitations and nosebleeds and dizziness and brain fog and all that other stuff, or cancer. It's intended to prevent what they call established adverse health effects, and they define that very narrowly. So when somebody says, oh, our antenna complies with the FCC limits, therefore it's safe, no, that's not true. Even according,
right. And those established health effects are the actual heating, like the cooking or frying of that's what ionizing radiation does. So they say, well, it doesn't do that. So, but that doesn't mean that there isn't cell damage and, carcinogenic effects and all of that. Yeah. Brain, other types of health effects and infertility and sterility. So I want to point out, it looks like it's section 85. That says they assert that their zoning requirements and their review and enforcement procedures are properly designed to, among other things, number 1, ensure that the design, appearance, and other features of buildings and structures are compatible with nearby land use, and 2, manage ROW so as to ensure traffic safety and coordinate variances, and 3, to protect the integrity. Is this the section that you were talking about?
Right in there, like 84 through about 92, they cover those 3 issues. Aesthetics. Okay. So like, if you are telling your city you should deny this permit application based on aesthetics, they probably should, but what they should do before that is to write some aesthetic requirements into the municipal code. In other words, into the zoning code. And then they can enforce it. They can use it as a basis for denying a permit.
So that's what's missing in the letter that I sent my city, was asking them to add it into the, because right here it says their historic, cultural, and scenic resources and their citizens' quality of life. Quality of life, that's a big deal.
Yes.
It impact these small cell facilities impact quality of life, right? So they can deny the applications based on this, scenic resources and the citizens' quality of life. Okay, so we have to use some of this in our communications with our city council members, right? These sections that allow us to make decisions about applications. If that's what you're saying, right, Mark?
Yes, and thank you. That's all I wanted to say on that. There's always more to say, but that's all I want to say.
Okay, well, I really appreciate this because I had not read this actual sentence. I mean, I think I've read this sentence before, but in a different context, right, on somebody's website. I didn't actually see this document. So this is great, folks. We really are learning a lot from each other, and that's why these calls are so important. And I really appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to screen share now. I'm going to switch topic a little bit to the OTARD. So remember how we talked about the satellites and the antenna on the ground? Well, the FCC approved 1 million antenna on the ground, and the Starlink satellite program, which is going to eventually have 42,000 or so satellites just for Starlink, and for Amazon and Facebook and Google and all these other companies and all these other countries like UK and China and Russia that want to have satellites up, probably more than 100,000 satellites in the skies. And they will be beaming down in beam forms, not blanket everywhere, but in particular beam forms. They will be beaming down the radio frequencies to particular antennas that are like the size of a pizza box, is what Dr. Trevor Marshall said. And what they're trying to do is change this rule, the OTARD ruling, which is over the air reception devices rule, WT 19-71, to allow wireless companies to install 5G and other cell towers and transmitting devices, not only receiving, but transmitting on homes. The wireless companies will be allowed to enter into a contract with your neighbor. They might pay him like $30,000 for the year. I don't know how much, but that's the number that was thrown around that I heard of, to install a cell tower on their home without the need for a permit, without asking for a neighbor's input or permission, and without any consideration to a neighbor's disability, property values, or other needs. And also, by the way, without the permission of, according to my conversation with Daphne, the lawyer that wrote this, that it would supersede any homeowners associations too, that the homeowners associations wouldn't be able to say no, and your city council wouldn't be able to say no, right? So this would be getting the red tape out of the way of your city council, and just being like, they would knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, would you like to earn 30,000 in a year? Yeah, well, we'd like to put this receiving device up on your roof. Is it safe? Oh yeah, sure. It's just like getting cable TV. That's what they would say, right? And your neighbor would be oblivious, could be elderly person, right? Not aware, could be a Spanish speaking person, needs extra money, their husband just lost their job, and they all of a sudden want to put this antenna up on the roof. So the OTARD rule expansion will allow a wireless Wild West sort of situation for 5G infrastructure and antenna deployment, which will include the 1 million antennas to provide the ground infrastructure for the satellites. The expansion of the OTARD rule will violate the Constitution and upend longstanding common law personal and property rights. The FCC does not have the authority to override people's rights to bodily autonomy and their property based to exclude the wireless radiation emitted by third parties from their home. Now, and so the Children's Health Defense, God bless them, has taken up, writing a letter to the FCC saying we do not consent to this rule, we do not consent to being radiated in our homes, and we don't want this to pass through. So please do go to their website and sign this letter and share it with a lot of people. You want to let your neighbors know about this as well. And a great place to go is to 5gcrisis.com. They have a toolkit there, and they have a letter to your neighbors. And so one day I printed a bunch of those out, like 40 of them out, and I walked around, I hit every single house on my block and on the front side and the back side of my block, and passed them out and told people about it. And they thought that this was not a good idea. And I also told them about the city council meeting that was coming up. A couple of the people I got to talk to about that, not many people showed up, but you want to make sure to continually, have this conversation with people, and be careful about it if you post on Nextdoor. I just got temporarily disabled because I posted on Nextdoor. Once I posted about a city meeting, just informing people that it was happening. I didn't say you stop 5G and all that, right? I just said there's a meeting coming up addressing small cell facilities, 4G/5G. And then another time I put up strengthen your immune system, right? Because of COVID. And I said, if you want to strengthen your immune system, one thing you may want to do is consider reducing your exposure to EMF. And you can do that by getting an Ethernet hardwire cable, right? And plugging it, getting an adapter and putting, it was totally just a friendly tip. And all I said was, and you may sleep better. I know I sleep a lot better since I've done this and I feel healthier. And they banned me, they disabled me. And I think this is because I've heard that some of the people on Nextdoor, some of the founders or the board members used to work for telecom. So you have to be careful about how you say this if you're going to post this on Nextdoor and come across as like objective. And yes, Max, but let people know about what's happening.
Last week, I was reading the book, The Invisible Rainbow.
Yes, I haven't
They
gotten
make
to
a
that.
very strong case that the flu, going back to the Spanish flu and before, are directly caused by electromagnetic EMF. And they pointed out that studies during the Spanish flu in 1918, where they were testing to see if it was communicable, and they had healthy people go in and sit with the sick people and talk to them and hold hands and breathe, exchange breath. One would inhale while the other was exhaling, back and forth. And then they had this healthy person go to like 10 people with the flu in a row and do this, and they didn't get sick. There was no contagion, but it was, again, the radio was introduced in 1917, the Spanish flu in 1918 as radio was building up. And the book points out in series how every generation, how every advance in electro radiation caused an epidemic, from the Spanish flu to the
Okay, well, it may not have, I just
Hong
want to
Kong
say it may
flu.
not have caused it. It may have contributed to it because,
No, caused it directly. There was no bugs, no viruses involved. That's another theory that was kind of, I don't know if it was in The Invisible Rainbow, but there's a theory that goes back to the 1800s that the flu virus is not something you catch, it's something you produce. As your body produces exosomes when you get sick as a way of casting off the whatever it is that, and that what they observe, that is what they call the flu. And they say you caught it, but instead you're producing it, and they got the whole thing backwards. And there's really no contagion involved, unless now with vaccinations of giving people germs where they might be shedding and
right,
creating a flu.
right. But let's be
Oh.
careful of saying that it doesn't exist and that it's only 5G, because here's the thing, it wouldn't be seasonal then, because people are using, cell phones and laptops during the summer and the spring just as much as they are during the fall. There's other factors that could be involved in this, and they are testing, and scientists are seeing an actual virus. They are, coding it, DNA, they are looking at it. These labs are actually testing for it. There is an actual virus, and that's what sorry, I'm going to mute somebody. Dr. Martin Paul said on the call last week, there is an actual virus, it is real, and 5G could be exacerbating the effects and increasing the death rates and all of that, but it's not 5G causing this, and that's the only reason. That's not what's happening. So we need to be really careful for the validity of our cause, to not be putting out there that, COVID-19 is only being caused by 5G. It's not true, folks. And if you think I'm naive or I'm stupid because I'm saying that, that's okay. I don't care. Just go out and research it. But just know that if you're claiming that, you're making our cause not look valid. Okay?
I'm not talking about COVID-19 specifically. I'm talking about the flu in general, and the history of the flu and the history of electricity.
Yes,
If you read the
absolutely.
book,
There is a well-known history for decades that have been shown that EMF weakens the immune system. So when you have a weakened immune system, you're going to be more likely to get sick. And the
but
sickness.
you know that the flu didn't exist before electricity was introduced. There was no flu.
Okay, well, I don't know that. I wasn't around then. So, but
Read the
thank you,
book.
Max. I appreciate. We can look at the book, The Invisible Rainbow. If you want to find out more about that, you can check that out. Right now, we're talking about the OTARD rule. Okay, so we want to get back to that. We just want to talk about how, what you can do. We want you to sign this letter, please, and inform your city council members and your homeowners association and your neighbors about this. They need people to speak up and to tell the FCC that they do not want people to be able to do this. Otherwise, they will just sneak it through, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing antennas on your neighbors' homes. And for example, one of the maps of the towers that have been put up showed Germantown, Maryland. They had 72 small cell facility poles that were going to go up in one neighborhood. That's the same kind of thing that they would like to do with these antennas, right? They would like to have them up all over the neighborhood so that they're downloading our data. Now, Dr. Trevor Marshall says that when they put these pizza box size, antennas up on the roofs, they could have the information go from cables from that antenna, and then it would not be nearly as harmful as the small cell facilities. And those cables could go into your home and go down and go into your neighbor's home, and people could much more safely get the data, right? And they could download our data much more safely, right? However, that's not likely to happen. From what we're seeing with these small cell facilities, they're going to have these antennas, these like pizza box, beaming information, right, to other people's homes and to other antennas. And those beams of, it's not beaming information, but beaming, right, the radio frequencies with the information. And when you walk through those beams, or your dog walks through them, or bugs or bees or birds walk through them, there's going to be harm inflicted in our neighborhood. And so that it's the beam, the 5G will be beams. It won't just be spread everywhere. There'll be beams of it, and the beam is more intensified. So thank you, Susie, for being on. I appreciate it tonight. So yeah, it is 6:04, so we're gonna close up, but I want everybody to be aware of this OTARD rule. It hasn't passed, but we don't want it to pass. We want to raise awareness about it. And one thing that Costa Mesa did when I went to that city council meeting, that's not my city, but I went to visit, was they did say, because people like you and I educated them and brought the information to this, they did say in the meeting, we did write a letter to the FCC and we opposed it. So if you could get your city, right, your city council members to write a letter to the FCC to oppose this, that will be very powerful as well, right? And so what you would want to do is pre-draft it or use the wording from this letter right here, copy and paste it, and send it to your city council members and say, would you send the FCC a letter, right? To tell them that you don't want to have this in our city. And, if people want to get reelected, your city council members, this might be a good thing for them to do, to listen to you. So before we sign off, does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
What about all of the satellites that Elon Musk is putting up in the atmosphere above us? Thousands of them.
Yes, we were just talking about that. That is part of what this OTARD rule is connected to. So they're putting the satellites up in the sky, and then they're going to be beaming down the information to these antennas. And that's why they want to put the antennas on people's roofs. And
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this is connected. They also, by the way, the antennas will also be beaming down information to the smart cars that they want to have driving all over the place. And the smart cars, they want them to be robotic, like driven, right, without human beings. So that's something that you control. You just don't use those, right? But you can't do anything about your neighbor having one of these if this rule passes. You're not going to. I mean, you could sue your neighbor. That is something that probably might end up happening, unfortunately, sort of like the farmers that fought and it was horrible. One killed another farmer because he didn't want the farmer spraying dicamba anymore. These neighbors are going to be pit against each other, unfortunately, if this happens. So you can grab this letter, send it to your city council, ask them to please send the FCC a letter. Having them speak up will be very impactful. Let your homeowners association know about it. They may want to send a letter. It will drop property values, right? If your neighbor has one of these on your home, on their home, it will affect you as well. So it's something really important for everybody to know about. They're going to keep trying to find a way, right, to get this technology into our cities. But I would like to remind you that if we don't buy it, they can't sell it. and we can continue to use our consumer power. It may not be in all ways. They may still be able to put this technology out in some ways, but in many of the ways, if you don't buy a smart TV, they won't know what you're watching. They won't be able to collect that download that data. If you use DuckDuckGo instead of Google, right? They won't be monitoring what you're searching for. If you turn your smart cell, put your phone into Ethernet cords, right? Or turn it on airplane mode, they won't be able to, they're still getting data on it, but there's settings that, there are settings that you can do, and you can reduce your EMF exposure. Somebody's asking about, yes, use your economic power. Thank you, Carla. You have a choice about what type of devices you have in your home. By the way, refrigerators are going to be smart. So keep your older refrigerator, just keep it. Your printers too. The older ones are so much more efficient and so much better. Your printers really need to be plugged in, guys, to an Ethernet cord. They emit a lot of stuff when you're using them, very high power. Any other questions? Yes, Max.
Well, qualifier.
Yep.
That there was a correlation other than EMF radio waves. There's like an 11-year cycle of sunspots with sun flares, which correlate with people getting sick. And there was like a period for like 40 years where it was low sunspot activity, when nobody was getting sick. But other than sunspots, which correlates with people getting sick, and flu-like symptoms, EMF is another one.
Yes. And so there are other factors. There's lots of factors for us being sick. And the most important thing is for us to, like I started off this call with, is think about what you're creating. Think about your health. If you wake up in the morning and look for your pain, I've had torn tendons in my shoulder. It's now migrated to my other shoulder for almost a year now. I've been in pain almost all day. But if I wake up and think about it, I'm much more present to it. If I wake up and imagine, my arms up in the air, full range of movement, I'm running along the ocean. Ever since I've been actively envisioning that full range of movement, I've had much better, ability to do that. If you envision it, if you see it, if you focus on it, it's not woo-woo, folks. You really are training your brain to do that. There's some really good books out there. The Placebo Effect. You Are the Placebo by, what's his name again? I forgot his name. But there's some really good books out there about the placebo effect and about people who have envisioned, shooting the basketball, and they do even better than the people who don't, right? Because they're just envisioning it. So you want to really focus on your health and what you're creating. And that's what somebody asked me, how do I stay sane through all of this? I am super hyper focused on what I'm creating. And for me, that's health and freedom. And for me, who I am is I'm committed to empowering people, empowering community leaders to be global game changers. Like, I'm clear, that is why I'm here. So when I get to be on a call with people like you that I see as community leaders, whether you think of you that way for yourself or not, I see you that way because that's empowering. And because for me, that's who you are. You're learning information that other people in your community are not learning. And so I see you as partners that are going to go out into your community and then share that information. And together we're going to transform the world. Like, I'm clear about that. I am clear that we are going to win this because nothing works without integrity. And they are just going to run themselves out of business because what they're doing hurts people. What they're doing is greedy and selfish, and it doesn't work for, and I don't name call that way. I don't call them that, that way. I really try to stay focused on just whether it works or not. It just does not work. It's out of integrity. They're not doing what they say that they're going to do. And same thing with GMOs, right? GMOs are not working because they don't do what they say they're going to do. Same thing with pesticides. So eventually we're going to win this, but we need to win this faster rather than later, because too many of us are going to get sick and die if we don't, right? There is an incredible amount of urgency for this. So so I focus on the future of what's going to, what I want to create. And I look at actions. What do I need to do to get there? And I also need to check in with reality because what I want is so far away from what we have right now. I often find that I'm often in a state of like, I can get into a state of despair for a little while, right? And breakdown. And I feel like a failure because we're not there, right? There's so many times we take 1 step forward and 5 steps back. I mean, look, there's nobody in the USDA right now that's even regulating GMOs. Not only do we not have labels, they're not even freaking regulating them. They're just a free for all of GMOs right now, right? So it's a mess. Now I could give up and put my head under a pillow or drink myself to death or whatever, you know, go into complete despair, but that's not in alignment with the future that I'm creating. The future, I'm still creating health and freedom no matter what they do, no matter who's in office. I'm still focused on that. And so I just really invite you guys to think about what are you focused on and what are you creating and what actions are you going to take, one action every day to create that. And then it really won't matter so much who's in office, who's in charge, with whatever's happening in the White House. We're still going to be creating that no matter what. And then the last thing to do is to make sure to acknowledge people. So if you're having trouble, if you feel down, you feel despair, look for some of the good news that's happening in the world and purposely pick up the phone and call and thank somebody for what they've done. Or ask your spouse or your best friend to acknowledge you for something that you've done. And this was going to be very awkward for some of you. Some of you have never done this in your entire life, but sometimes I go to my husband and I say, I would really like to be acknowledged for not losing my stuff on, you know, this kid who just said X, Y, and Z to me. I was really good. And I just said this and that. You know, he's like, wow, I really acknowledge you for, you know, being an awesome mom and for not losing your stuff on, you know, this kid. And we just start laughing together and I just feel awesome. And that fuels me for going on to being a good mom, you know, because I asked for acknowledgement when I needed it rather than just being resentful. Like, that kid, you know, I could have said this and I could have said that and he doesn't appreciate me and, you know, being all resentful. No, go ask for acknowledgement if you need it. Try it out. And if your husband's in a stinky mood or your partner or whoever, ask them, what do you want to be acknowledged for? And they'll be like, what? And just be like, yeah, if you could be acknowledged for anything in the world, what would you like to be acknowledged for? Just ask them. Go try that tonight. And just ask the people that are in your house, is there anything that you'd like to be acknowledged for? And you will find it is a really connecting, like a bonding, incredible experience. And look them in the eye and don't just say thank you, like really acknowledge them for being courageous or generous or committed or whatever that is, right? Yeah, so solidarity, right? Yes, creating that connection has you be stronger. And that's why I'm so passionate about this work that we're doing with Moms Across America. And I really would like you guys to look at on Moms Across America under events right now. There's a page that says how to start a group. And we've just did the outline for moms co-ops. So I'm just going to talk about that for 1 minute and then we're going to go. So I'd like to start creating moms co-ops, not chapters where it's like just a Moms Across America chapter, right? And we're only teaching this type of thing. No, I want it to be cooperative. So we're inviting in people that are to talk about 5G. We're inviting in people to talk about health reading. We're inviting in slow food movement or OCA or Beyond Pesticides or, you know, Holistic Moms Network, right? Or Western Aid Price Foundation, different people to talk to our moms in these groups locally. So this is lovely. I love this nationally, but I would like you guys to go and do this locally. Right now, it has to be Zoom, right? Because we can't get together, but eventually you'll be able to get together locally. And these local moms co-ops, the long name is Moms Across America Cooperatives, but we'll just call them moms co-ops, will be cooperatively working together to inform each other and to invite involvement in the local policies that affect health. And the reason why I want to do this is because I was a part of the Moms Club International, which is amazing. I highly suggest it for people, especially if you have a baby and your baby's projectile vomiting and you know, you got to potty train and you're going to like lose your brain, right? You're losing your mind, especially for people who don't have moms and aunties and sisters nearby. Transplants, that's what I was. I had nobody. So I joined the International Moms Club and it was fantastic. It basically saved me from going into postpartum depression. However, when the GMO labeling thing came around, I couldn't talk to them. I couldn't share petitions. I couldn't share anything about GMO labeling. I couldn't, because it was an initiative. It was political. They wouldn't allow anything political. And I was like, this does not work. We moms get together and we're doing stuff to take care of our families. And if something's going to threaten the health of our families, we should be able to share about that, right? We should be able to say, hey, here's how you contact your representative. Here's how you contact your senator. Here's the school board phone number. Here's the city council. Did you know they're going to spray next week, for mosquitoes all over our city? We should be able to all then say, hey, if you want to, let's go to the vector control meeting. Here's what you want. Here's what we could say if you want to say that, right? Nobody has to. It's just an invitation. I did not know how to do any of that. I didn't know who my representative was. I didn't know how to go in. None of that. So I would like our moms co-ops to support that, right? To be able to say, hey, here's your representative's number. And have people say, okay, I am not a great people person, but I'll be the person to be the watchdog for the state legislators, right? What new bills are coming up? I will report back to the group on that. Great. Somebody else who's a people person can say, great, I'll be the welcome person. I'll call people and chat them up for a little bit and listen to them for 10 minutes when they join the group, right? And somebody else could be like, okay, I am really concerned about chemicals because my kids are chemically sensitive. So I want to be the watchdog for the vector control group, the people who are going to spray for mosquitoes. And everybody just has one job and that's it. And then you report back to the group once a week if there's anything new that happens on a Zoom call. And sometimes you have a Zoom call just to learn how to make sauerkraut or bake, sourdough bread or some health solutions. Yeah, so step one is go to the website, momsacrossamerica.org, and click on events. And under that is how to start a group. And there's a tab that says how to start a mom's co-op. And basically you just read the agreements through and you pick which issue you're going to start off with, like 5G, or maybe getting your local food supply list, like contacting your farmer's market person and saying, hey, our farmer's market's shut down, but we want to support these farmers, and you want to support the local food supply system, right? So whatever issue you want, or health freedom, whatever that is, you pick your topic, you make your Facebook page. At first I was doing Unstoppable Moms of Mission Viejo, but I don't think enough people got that. So I just did Mission Viejo Moms Co-op, right? And Moms Across America on the inside. So I'll send you a graphic if you want to start that. So it would be, Topanga Moms Co-op. And that's really easy. It's attractive. It's not controversial, and you can get going that way. And so that's how you can get started. Go to, does any feedback about that, or any ideas, or you guys like it? Your grandmother, but you're still a mother. That's okay. In fact, I wish we could get more grandmothers than moms right now, because more grandmas tend to have more time than moms of little kids. I wish we had just a pack of grandmas come on board. So, yeah, any other comments?
I don't know if it's the area or what, but sometimes it kind of breaks the communication somewhere in the area that you're.
I can't hear you. Can you speak up a little bit, Vicki? A little bit louder?
I don't. Yeah, you're clear now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you say your question? Vicki, can you say what you wanted to say? No, I can't hear you. You can repeat it though. Joanna, you can say something.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Can you silence me?
Yeah, I did. I can hear you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I so needed this call. I so appreciate your feedback about how do you keep yourself sane. That's really, really valuable for me right now.
Great.
I know this is not the reason of this call, but I wanted to ask you, where can I find information? Are people getting organized about what's happening right now, and how people are really concerned about the plans to install a universal coronavirus vaccine and whatnot? Are people working on this with moms across America?
Yeah, so there are still people on the Health Freedom Group that are working on just researching things around the vaccine, but it's really challenging right now because they're not giving out much information. They've just started trial studies, and they've injected some people in Washington, and I don't know if there were people in Africa as well that were injured from it apparently, but I haven't seen the actual data on that. So if you want to get more involved in that, there are groups like a Voice for Choice and Parents for Health Freedom, and there's a lot of Stand for Health Freedom. There are a lot of groups that
Yeah.
are focused on that. And you could bring that to
Yes.
Moms Across America and we could share it. So that would be
Yeah,
great.
I would love to. So is there a link? Where do I find the links? On your website?
No, that you just got to look up like a Voice for Choice or Parents for
Voice
Health
for Choice,
Freedom
perfect.
or Parents
Yeah,
United for Kids. You just got to look them up.
beautiful. I
Yeah.
so appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
But yeah,
Take
yeah.
care.
So we would like somebody like you that has that information, because I can't do everything, right? To give us a
Yeah, I would
blurb.
love to. I mean, I have
Yeah.
tons of information. What I want to do is now a course of action, because people, okay, we have the information now. What do we do? So I want to be part of an organization to take action. I have tons of information, and maybe in another meeting, but I just want to share that in 1976, and I send you the video so you can share it, or I don't know if you've seen it. There was another flu, the swine flu, or maybe those of you who were around the 1970s remember. But it sounds exactly like now. This flu is going to kill us all. I mean, there was a flu, in fact, but the vaccine was, it was horrific. It caused Guillain-Barré. It was really bad news. So that's my concern about this new
Yes,
flu shot.
the vaccine absolutely could cause a more permanent damage, other than death or in addition to death. It could cause permanent damage, which far exceeds the impact of just a, couple weeks or a month long, flu-like virus. It could actually be way more impactful. And so we could be looking at a whole other wave of people who have paralysis and right, Guillain-Barré symptoms and all kinds of learning disabilities. It could be really tragic. So in that line of thinking that I brought up earlier today, though, about what do you want to create, I think that our movement should be sending a letter to the people who are creating these vaccines and saying, here's what we want. We want them to be safety tested with saline placebo, right? Not another vaccine. They need to be safety tested with saline placebos. They need to not contain any aluminum or mercury or any type of toxin. They need to actually be proven to work, right? We should be telling them what we want, not just reacting.
Right. I mean, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I think it goes so much deeper than that, because at this point, in order for them to do that, they will have to acknowledge that what they are doing is wrong. But the pitch is that everything they've been doing is right.
No, they don't have to be acknowledging that what they're doing is wrong. They just need to look at what we want and actually consider it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's phenomenal. Another concern I have about it is that I've been reading, even on the CDC page, if you look at safety, vaccine safety, and you start clicking and clicking and clicking, it's not right there, but you have to start clicking. It talks about shedding and how regular vaccines are shedding, and that's causing outbreaks.
That's a major concern, shedding.
Yeah. So anyway, I do thank you so much again, and I'll bring the information. I mean, how do I share with you the information I have?
You can email me at zen@momsacrossamerica.org anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a little time, because that vaccine's not going to be around for maybe 18 months, but way before that, we should be telling them what we want. Absolutely. Yeah. And so Lisa, you had a question? Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you.
Lisa, you had a question? No, you didn't? Okay. Oh, maybe that was from before. Okay. Well, anybody else? I thank you, everybody, for posting comments. And the replay can be found of this on momsacrossamerica.org under events. There's a page that says Moms Connect Call. I'll be posting it tomorrow morning. You can share it with your friends and family. And any information like the comments on the side and the, hi there, and the sources, I haven't normally been putting them on, up with the Moms Across America page. So I'll have to look at that. Maybe I can add them into the YouTube comment section, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to have all of these sources. So if you gave me a bunch of sources in this chat section and you want them to be, posted somewhere, then just let me know about that. Okay. If it's something really important, but if anybody gives me any sources, sometimes I do these calls and then somebody starts messaging me 8 times a day. Please don't do that. Just give me only the most essential thing. And if it's a 2-hour video, please tell me what is the point of the video that most moved you. right? So in this video, X described that this happened, and at 34 minutes, he gives you the proof why, right? So give me that so that I don't have to look for something for 2 hours, because I won't be able to get any work done if I have to watch what everybody sends me. So, but send me the gist of it, and then I can see whether or not we can share that with other people. Yeah, I think I can save the chat log and add some of the information on there. I just want to know, there's a lot of information shared, so I don't know, if all of it will get on there. Okay, well, thank you everybody for being on tonight. I really appreciate your feedback and your questions. Hi there. Thanks, Jacqueline and Kirsten. Thanks everybody. Thanks for being on tonight. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.